welcome to the Knockout Podcast. I've had to jump in quick on Tommy Tucker again because he won't be quiet for us to get this
They're
Knockout
just jealous of
Podcast
me.
started again. We're back again for another one. We've got Peter Jensen with us, 6-time knockout champion. There's not many people who have won it 6 times. I don't know too many that have won it 6 times. Knockout legend, one of the toughest, hardest front rowers to ever play the game, and absolute pleasure to have you here with us today with Dean Witters and Tommy Tucker. PJ?
Yeah, very generous introduction there, George. I don't know about the toughest, but definitely one of the most excited. I love going to the knockouts, doing my thing. I can remember coming down from Canberra back in 2004 for my very first knockout, weighing 90 kilos. And just
90 kilos?
Yeah, full of enthusiasm. But
straight.
Yeah, and straight. Just had absolutely no idea what I was in for. I'd played in knockouts in far north Queensland, but not down here. And I just put so much energy into the early games, not knowing how long the weekend was going to be. So if everyone thought that I was mad and crazy, it wasn't that. It's just that I was stupid.
Wow.
Crazy. Now, Rudd, tell us about the start of it, because I remember when you come onto the scene, you sort of exploded onto the scene. Wes Patton there, getting him, made sure you had you on his teams in those knockout days. Tell us about your journey into the start of playing your knockout footy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm from a little small community, and I'll do a shout out to the Ravenshoe Tigers up far north Queensland. Very small community. Probably had no right to leave the community and make it in the NRL and come down to New South Wales. Very small communities, very sheltered communities. So coming down to New South Wales was just completely different. I went to Canberra to begin with. Canberra's a very close-knit little community, very cliquey also, so sort of just felt out of my league, didn't feel very connected with community or anything out of there.
It is different there, right?
It's very different in Canberra. Got the Boomanalla fellas. I connected up with all the black fellas there, but it just didn't have the same sort of vibe, you know. I made New South Wales country, met Choco, Jeff Johnson, and he's like, Peach, do you want to come? You're a black fella, eh? I'm like, yeah, bro. He said, you want to come and play for Redfern? So I had absolutely no idea about it. Hadn't really heard. I've heard about the knockout, but never even thought about playing. He invited me down, and the rest is history, really.
Is that one of the great recruitment gets of the years, or what?
Old Choco Johnson's, is he? He obviously contributed to that side on the field, Choco, but I think his major contribution was off the field, bringing this fella along, because back in those days, I remember when you come onto the scene, there wasn't a lot of front rowers of your type of player around. They would go big minutes, go all day, do all the tough stuff in the carnival, and just outwork virtually everyone you come up against. And I remember seeing you in that side. You're in a star-studded team, but you were the one who wanted to do all the dirty work in that side. And is that what you saw your role as you come into that team? Because, geez, you had a good team around you, but you took on you made your own sort of space in that team.
Yeah. So, like, Rod Jensen's my older brother. We don't come from communities where you get coached. We didn't really have coaches. We had mums and dads that helped us out. And the way that we made it was through our work. We didn't know anything else. So we weren't steppers. We weren't big hitters. But when we went out on the field, we just knew what our role was in far as work ethic. And I think that's what everyone remembers me as someone who used to work hard. Like, if there's a hit up to take, I'll take it. If there's a tackle to make, if I need to take 2 hit ups in a set and we're not getting momentum, like, that was my job, and I didn't know any different, to be honest.
Who helped you with that role in that team to come in there and to sort of find, this is my spot in this team, this is what I'm going to do for this side?
Yeah, to be honest, it was all just a bit of a blur, to be honest. Back then, like I said, I was 24, come down, the boys and the energy that Redfern had was crazy. I'd never really seen anything like it. We got there, Wes Patton had his little routine before every single game. Would be sitting there.
And he stole that from Walgett, or did Walgett steal it from him, George? Or did Narwhal steal it from him? I don't know. Wes has accused us of a lot of things over the years, but he got that routine before.
What's his routine?
Look, there was a routine that I may or may not have taken from Wes, and, if he's upset about that, I'm sorry, my brah, but it worked back then, and it certainly worked for us at Walgett as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, about what the ingredients are to make a good winning team, and I would be lying if I never said that that first knockout was a big eye-opener for me about how much pre-planning there is in the game, how the warm-up, how you're prepping, the conversations that you're having in the background about what it's going to take to win. And it wasn't too hard. The culture at the memorial side that year, we had Uncle Tony Merritt there, old uncle standing there leading the way, taking the hit-ups. We had the young fella, what's his name?
Nathan.
Sorry?
Nathan
there. Nathan, just charging at it. And I saw him as a role model back then, just a young lad. But this lad's playing first grade, just come back from a kangaroo tour, and we looked up. But not only that, all the Robinson boys and just the whole introduction to the Koori knockout at Redfern, in Redfern, was such an experience for me. I was coming back. There was no doubt about it.
And Wes Patton, Ron Merritt Memorial, and
that's right.
Obviously the two big contributors to Redfern community and into the Redfern All Blacks team there. And then Wes, obviously, and Nath, it's Wes's father, Sess, and Ronnie Merritt was Nath and Tony's father. So it meant a lot to them boys, didn't it, to play? And you could see that passion coming through very quickly.
Mate, the passion was there. Everyone hated us. We won the first one. I wasn't part of Curry. We won the second, the third, and by then people were upset with us. They felt, I don't know what the feeling was, but we decided to.
We wanted to kill you. We wanted to kill you. We wanted to come up against us. Walgett wanted to play you.
Yeah.
We were all lining up.
But that's the beauty of being the best, is that everybody wants to come for you.
But it was a new generation team. There was all the young guns around Sydney. You couldn't just get that side together. Yeah. And being just 'cause the blokes living in Sydney, not that it's easy to form, but when you have the blokes playing in Sydney together, you can wrap them up and put them in your team a bit easier than getting them together from playing in the bush team.
The attitude that Redfern brought to the knockout was like nothing I'd ever seen. Like
wearing boxer gear, chalk stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, boxer. You would take a hit up, and then before you looked over your shoulder, someone else was taking the next one. Sometimes when you're looking around and you're like, who's next? Next? We were fighting over the ball.
That's mad.
And you know what? When you have such an outfit that covers the whole team across the field like that, you have the luxury of doing that because you're only doing your own work. So when you're only doing your own work, then you get lots of energy to do the spectacular stuff. But when you're doing over and above what you need to do, and that's what the thing that I can remember about Redfern, man, there was a lad there, Jason Munro, you all know, brother boy.
Jason.
I always see him, I go,
the most capped knockout winner of all time.
Yeah. And I say to him, are you the craziest man I ever met? Because he just, his eyes would roll back in the back of his head and he'd put every little bit of heart and soul into his hit-ups, into his tackles. And I'm a grunter when I tackle, but this lad, man, I'm telling you, he would roar. And I bumped into his son, Lindsay, at St. Greg's College, and I was like, Lindsay, you have no idea, man, your dad was a beast. Like, I loved playing next to him because he just... he mightn't have been the best player on the field, but the energy and everything there, he would just evoke the best out of you.
He brought another 50% out of you, didn't he?
He brought just that little bit extra out of you. When you're seeing your winger come in and taking hit-ups and just being that aggressive, you got to ask questions to yourself about how you're contributing. And you just have these players in your team that bring that element to the game that's just a little bit different.
I think they were lucky to have you, really. You come in from nowhere, with all that energy, that fitness, determination. I just remember you running the ball, head down, just going straight into them. Yeah. And it was sort of like it was just on repeat for the whole knockout.
But was it a buzz to you to play that style of football? Because you played country football, you played high reps, but the knockout was like it's made for you, the style of football you wanted to play.
Yeah, I love the footy, knockout football. You can't cater for everyone. So I had so many friends who hated me. They'd be like, Peach, come and play, and I was tight with them. And it would be a memorial side or it would have been something significant to it, and I know that it meant so much to them. But when there's a commitment in the knockout. When you do it, it's bigger than a game of football. It's modern day. People say modern day corroboree. It's past that. It's modern day warfare. We got your crew, and you come together, and everyone is contributing to that war, and it's to out pride, out muscle, out play, out rank, and to be the most dominant, and the pride that comes with that means absolutely everything. And when you think about why the hell do I play for 3 days, play 8 games, and there's blood pouring out of my body everywhere. I got knocked unconscious yesterday, but I'm back here again today, and some lads can't see out of their eye, and you got to question why the hell is this lad doing this? What is in it? And, everyone who thinks that it has anything to do with money is wrong. And they'll say, oh, they bought this team, they bought this and they bought that, and it's not that. The year that we played yous, Dean, up at where you knocked out Tween Heads,
Kingscliff.
Man, yous just brought this passion to the game, and we couldn't out enthuse you. That energy and that camaraderie and that brotherhood, I could feel it on the opposition. And I was trying to get to the boys. I was going, fuck, let's go. Come on, take that hit up. And when I looked at them, they just looked like someone had stolen their souls. They didn't want to take that hit up because you just brought that spirit and that element. And we knew that before we even took the hit up that you were better than us. You out-muscled us and put us into submission. That's what the knockout's about. It's being that dominant people, being those lads who hit up, having that camaraderie. When someone messes with your brother, no, bro, not on this field, not today, you know. And that's what the knockout is. It's just a different level. It's not rugby league. It's something else. It's only something that we understand as mob and community and the pride that comes with winning a knockout. And we all know that. Yeah.
I tell you what, one thing about this fella is that playing alongside him, every time that he had something to say, he could get you pumped up. Listening to him here talk now makes me want to take it. I want to get the ball and have a run again.
It makes me want to go back and play. But and there's one game that particularly for me, watching you play, stands out, and it's the Waterloo versus the Memorial team game at Henson Park. And I don't know if you knew all the background story to that game, but after them boys had been in the Memorial side the year before, and they changed, and Wes was filthy with them all, and there's real rivalry. Chock and Wes, obviously brothers, and going up against each other. And Sydney versus Sydney community. And I remember there was some big name players in that forward pack that you're up against in Waterloo, and there was the whisper going around the field that everyone was going after PJ Jensen because he's standing out in the games and he's setting the barometer for forwards in this knockout. And I know as a front rower, and George will be the same, that we were like, oh, can't wait to play him, want to go up against him. But I remember you standing up in that game. What did you feel in that game? Did you know the history between those two teams?
Look, I knew there was history. I could hear the boys talking. Wesley's trying to pump me up, but I'm just not invested in it. Like it's not relevant to me. But I'm a bullfed. Anyone who played with me knows that don't take me on like that because you're not going to win. Like I'll just until I die, and that's the mentality that I used to have, and it was just natural. It was the way that I was reared up. The hardships that we have in our community, it makes us strong people, and having a hard upbringing just makes you stronger in the head than most people. So when things get hard, you'll draw back on how you were reared up. And for a lot of people, they can't handle that in your face. And for some people, it's a trigger. You turn the light switch on, and then you just become more determined. And so I think that's been most of my life. You're better off just not upsetting me because I'll get buff-headed and I'll hurt myself doing that. So I remember the game. It was a tough game, but it didn't faze me. It is what it is. We've had lots of tough games. That's not the hardest. I remember Wollumban, first game. I said to Rod, "Don't unpack your stuff because we could be going home today." They were stacked and they were big and rough. And I said, "Don't unpack your stuff. We could be
last game of the day.
We could be going home."
What way?
First game.
First game.
Over
very
on field
first game.
7 or something like that.
Game 1.
We had the backyard fences up against the. So that's how far back we were. What was it? Field 4 or 5? Or?
These boys are,
they were fit.
100, 115 kilos just charging at us, and we just muscled up and got the work done. That's just the way that it is, Dean. You understand that.
Yeah.
The mongrel and the thing that sets you aside from everyone else, especially us mob, is our no fear.
That game was a very well-disciplined game from Walgett against that Wollumban team.
Yep.
You had to be against that team.
Yeah, Benny Jones. He give you one game because he had to go on holidays.
Great game too, Benny Jones.
Come on, he said, Matty said, "Benny, can you just come play one game for us?" Signed on, played 5'8", and just kicked into the corners, and he's just defended like. And I think it was a tight game. And I think what the score end up being, Trenny? What do you reckon? What I mean,
something like that.
Is there close ones with them all the time, weren't you?
Never quite ahead enough to relax, but done the job, and it set you up.
In all fairness, I felt like the first knockout was a really strong knockout at Redfern, and the next two we were very fortunate in that our draws were very gentle on us. And so a draw can make you or break you.
Yeah, 100%.
And so great teams go out on a first game just based on who they pick in the draw. all of the grand finals we won were Walgett. I'm telling you, we fought.
That was tooth and nail.
Every single, and we bashed ourselves to death. And you were walking home and just putting yourselves in massive salt baths, trying to recover, crying to yourself for the next week.
But when you played with Walgett those years, I remember you were like, look, boys, go out there, do some damage for me. I'll come off the bench. I'm gonna save myself in the games to just make sure you get the correct impact into the game. And
and there's strategy behind everything.
And I remember you doing that the South Coast game. We talked about it the other week.
Yeah.
You come on, we was sort of losing a bit there. Come on, change momentum.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week. And that's what you had to do.
Because I played the game the way that I did, very little respect for my body. I retired from permanent football at 28. And my body's smashed, and I'm 43 now, and my body's completely gone. Like, I wake up in the morning and I got to, like, hold my body to walk down the stairs.
Bit jellish?
And when I sit down for too long, I can't straighten up. And what people don't understand is that when you treat your body like that, the consequence of that later on in your life. And I have really bad memory. Before I come here, I said, don't ask me questions because I'm not going to remember. And I know it's because you're putting your body on the line, you're taking these head knocks, and there's a consequence for all of that. So people will tell me, Pete, do you remember when you did this, and you remember when you did that? And I absolutely have, like, literally no memory of lots of those things, where some people, they can tell you everything that happened in their whole football career.
Well, I got one. You nearly got beat. That Redfern, Wes Patton. Yeah, when they played Dungutty Titans in the semi-final. He's a hot, Henson Park, he's already won a knockout. I don't know whether it was your second knockout or not with them, but the Titans, someone's getting close to beating us. I'm in front by 10 points. And then the other PJ Ellis started running the ball. Unlikely fella. He gets the ball, runs out between 5'8" and second row, straight through, passes it full back. He repeats that 2 or 3 times. He makes like 8 minutes feel like, half an hour. And they he's win that game, and I think he's might have played Lapras in the grand final. But that was one of the highlights. I was thinking, come on, Titans, beat these bastards. Come on, I'm fucking sick of these fellas.
The boys.
Yeah, I'm sick of these fellas winning. They're just too good.
I love playing with PJ Ellis. He's just one of those lads who will turn up. He'll do the tackles. PJ's just one of those special lads that when you play knockout football with, he just keeps turning up. He's just one of those guys. The parties too. Like, out of nowhere, he'll just rock up.
He was my housemate when I was at the Roosters. We lived together for a couple of years, me and PJ, and you're definitely right about the party. He'll turn up at a party.
You reckon he got busted shoulders because he lifted them?
Oh, geez. He got the biggest shoulders and neck, though. I remember he used to walk around with his shirt off. And
I don't reckon his shoulders will ever be busted.
The traps on him.
Unbreakable.
Geez, he could hit. And I want to knock out with him at Narwhal back in the early days in 2000. And, he was brilliant to play with, PJ. Yeah. One of my favourite players to play with.
It's probably one of the things that I probably doesn't get celebrated enough, and maybe you take for granted because you have it. But coming down to Sydney and playing in the knockouts and opened me up to the wider Aboriginal community here. We're very secluded where we're from, like mob stay with mob. And especially back in the 80s and 90s, you couldn't move from community to community because mob hated each other. And now it's certainly changed now. We've evolved from that time, but it was very difficult. And I remember when I first come down here, just how welcomed I was and how people looked after you. I bumped into you, Dino, and you probably didn't realise, but I wasn't playing big NRL football and that, and idolised you and idolised the footy that you did. And I'd be coming down to Sydney for a night and I'd ring Wesy up and Wesy would be like, come stay at my place, and you'd be staying there, and I'd be like, wide-eyed, and like, look at these lads here. And just the access you get to professional rugby league players where we come from, you don't see any of these mob. Like, you don't see them in Far North Queensland.
That's
you
unreal.
don't realise, and the talent that we have in Far North Queensland. And if you can't be what you can't see, and so they think that this dream isn't their dream. Like in the communities where we come from. Some of the best rugby league players I've ever seen. Roddy and I, we weren't the best rugby league players in the towns that we come from. Jamie Cashmere, absolute crazy football player, biggest hitter, chip chaser, elusive as. There's another bloke called Brian Carney, deadly black fella from Ravenshow also, the best rugby league player you ever seen, went away to the Cowboys, lasted there for about 2 weeks, missed home and come home.
Wow.
But then we had Akin Barragood and Topoa and all of these really, really good rugby league players that just never, ever get a look because of where we're from, and they'll never take themselves out of the community. We're down here, you know, you can come from Walgett, but you have access to the Rose Boys. You know, you can come from your small community.
We've got sister cities, you know.
Everyone looks after each other down
Everyone
here.
looks, and I feel that. Hey, 100%. I feel like this is almost home now. I've lived here for almost 24 years. I only ever lived up home for 20 years. So I feel like I'm at home now. I still go home and I smell the air and I know that I'm home. You know, that connection to country type stuff. But certainly something that we don't celebrate enough is this communityness, and knockouts just mean so much to us. You get to see everyone. And we probably overlook that sometimes, but it's something special that we have that nobody else does.
Now, one thing about back home, you talked about when you first come down and first experience a knockout, how you're blown away by the experience here. What are the knockouts like back up top end, back up around top North Queensland, and how does it differ to down here? Yeah,
it's just way different. We've got small communities. People are travelling hours and hours and hours, sometimes on flights to get there. We can bring lads that come down from the Torres Strait. I remember, Georgie, when I took you up to Cairns once to a knockout, and we're sitting there.
It was hot, Joe.
Yeah, it was hot. It was really, really hot. We're playing in summer, so it's not good. But we're standing there and the boys are speaking broken English. And Georgie's like, "Bro, you understand what they're saying, cuz?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is what they're saying and this is what..." And he's like, "Bro, I've never seen that before." We went out to the clubs and we got full-blood black fellas from Arakoon, Lockhart River, Dumaji, all of these lads all coming out from everywhere. And trainees looking at me going, "Bah, I've never seen anyone so black before." And it's just like we got fellas that are coming out of deep rural communities, fellas that are speaking traditional languages, coming down when they're on the field, they're talking lingo to each other, and if you don't know what they're saying, you don't know, saying their prayers in lingo before the games. But yeah, just a completely different type of style of football in Cairns than what you'll get in ours. We're big and structured. We've evolved, man. The New South Wales Koori knockout, it's a professional football league now. Like when you look at the standard of the grand final last year, that's the highest standard that you're going to get that's not NRL professional. And that's the difference. At home, we're still very country orientated, very little structure, very elusive, broken play type stuff. But here, a little bit more professional.
They always hit you around the shins too, eh? That's one thing that I learned up there.
Tough
First run I had, I was charging at this little... I think we played Yarrabah. We were playing Yarrabah and I took it up. I seen these fellas, I was just charging onto it. Old mate dipped. He was about 6 foot. He dipped down. He hit me straight in the shins and I did a front flip, landed on my belly. And that was it. Then after that, it was all footwork.
Knocked the ginsel out of you.
But you just know the heat up there.
I was hot.
It doesn't matter how fit you are. If you're not born and bred in that area, I can't even do it anymore. They just have a...
Natural.
And it's hotter in the shade too. It's even hotter in the... I tried to go in the shade to cool down. It was even hotter. Yeah. That blew me away.
You played for the Stallions, eh?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. We did. Do you remember when we went out that night, the one thing that blew me away when we were up there is, and you were talking about them little fellas that we ran into, and you said to them, "Hey, do you know these boys here? You know these boys here?" And they said, "Yeah, Walgett Connections, Connections."
On the opposite side of the world almost, and they know. And that's the funny thing too, because I can go into any community and people will come up to me and they'll say, "Hey, you're Walgett fella, eh? You play for Walgett." And I go, yeah. And I said, "PJ." They go, "Oh, PJ Jensen." But they always say that I'm from Walgett first. So it's funny how people will see you in a different light and how you're introduced.
But that's the beauty of the reach of the knockout now, right? Isn't it?
Good topic there. North Queensland players that have come down this knockout and done well. I remember Stevie Singleton come down and did well there for Minderoo.
Yarrabah fella.
Yeah, Yarrabah fella. Nolly Underwood. I thought Nolly Underwood was amazing when I first saw Noel Underwood. Who's some of the big ones you've seen come down over the years?
Palmer. When he was playing for Waterloo, they were saying, "This Fijian lad here." I was like,
Fijian, big
Broncos.
Oh, yeah, Palmer.
Yeah. And I'm saying, they haven't been to the Torres Strait, these fellas.
Waterloo, they get a fair few of the North Queensland boys.
Yeah.
You go and watch their team last year.
Yeah, the Corn Bros, some of the boys come down.
Milton.
Milton
Mossman.
Mossman, deadly player.
Yeah.
He killed it.
Marpelli was good.
Marpelli.
For
Also,
Marcel
yeah,
when he
yeah.
played for
Yeah.
Mentoribi.
Georgie Kepper.
Yeah, Bamaga.
Georgie Kepper.
Bamaga.
One of our best. One of our greatest
Who's your
of all
best
time.
North Queensland player, Georgie, that you've played with?
Oh, well, I think he's already rattled them off. Between the Jensen boys, Georgie Kepper, Nolly Underwood. But we've been,
You got some good ones.
we've seen some great ones come down.
They're picking the right ones, but
Who's the scout? Who's the scout up there in North Queensland for whack?
I don't know.
Must have some good connection. Royston Lightning, is it?
I'd
or-
come over with about 100 players.
Actually, young Brenton.
Young Brenton
Royston's
doing well.
boy.
okay. So while we're on the topic, what recruits good players to your team?
Well, I think it's a good setup, and you talked about there, and I think it's a good point that you made, brother. Your body, the way it is now, and what you go through. You explained it so well. What you go through as a leading player over those 3 days, your body goes through hell. And I think you got to have a good setup where you're looking after your players well. You got physios, you got strappers, you got injury treatment there, you got your people around that make them feel comfortable and feed them and all that sort of stuff. Because as young players these days, with all the games televised, the opportunities that you get to play with some big name players that are going to teach you a lot about football.
Yep.
You got to take the chance to play with the most professional teams and try and progress your career. And we saw Latrell Seagwalt last year.
Yeah.
He's now got an opportunity off the back of playing WAC. He don't play for WAC. He doesn't get that. You know what I mean? So that's the opportunities that can come off the back of the knockout. Being in a side that does well, that looks after their players well, that'll be my big these days. That's my big thing around recruiting players. I'd make sure you got.
I think how you feel when you're there too. One thing that I've noticed with people who have played with different teams, but also played with us. One thing that they always said was how they felt. They felt like they were part of the family when they were here, and all of our staff is made up of our family. Whether it's Roddy John rubbing your calves with emu oil, or it's Tom talking to you all the way through, Kurt filling up the bottles. Anyone that's there, they're all part of the family, and everyone who's there makes you feel like part of the family. They know you, they know your partner, they know your kids, they know your uncle who come for the drive, they know whoever's with you. They make you feel like part of the family, and I think if you don't have that feeling, you probably don't come back.
Right. One of the best at doing it, especially in the early days, was Wes. Wes would bring players together. He'd make them feel part of the family, make them feel part of it. And that was his strength in those days. What was it like? Tell us about Wes when he first got you in there. What did he make you feel like?
He was a people's person. He really did cater for you. He felt like he was your brother, that he had your back. You know, I'd come down and I wouldn't have accommodation. And back then I had no wallang. Like I didn't have opportunity. Wes, you'd be like, yeah, bro, come stay at my place, you know. And it was an extension to that. But then when you got to the footy, you know, he just had a way about him. Look, I'd be lying if I don't think that Wes is probably one of the all-time greats of the knockout. I can just remember we talk about players that changed the game. How many times we were in a wrestle and we were, you know, and he would just put himself in a play. He'd be out all night the night before drinking, come in, and I'd be like, how does this lad do what he does, you know? Lie and break and run the field or run down someone and make a tackle. Your leaders, you know, being a leader is one thing, but being charismatic and developing relationships is important. That family type feeling. And I always said this, you know, people would talk bad about Wes for whatever reason, and I would always pull him straight because he would take his shirt off his back. That's how I know Wes. If you're in a bad place, Wesy would take his shirt off his back to make sure that you're okay, and that's why he's a solid lad when it comes to me. But when we flip it over also, when we talk about WAC and how I went over to Walgett, man, like I'm part of the family and have been ever since. Like this wasn't like I'm going to use you one off or this is a one-day event type thing. This was like a relationship and trust, and it was past just a transaction. It was more intimate than that. When they invited me, they would be saying, "Oh, bring your kids. What size jersey does your children have? Oh, this accommodation's not going to be big enough for you. I'm going to put you in this room here and make sure that you're comfortable." When we come out for breakfast, Arnie Sherry and Mirinda and the whole family were all fussing over you. Every single night we'd sit down and before the knockout would have our little yarns, your first story or your first this or your first that. But, you know, you might laugh. But what it does is, because blackfellas, we love humour. We love a laugh. And so we know that when you're laughing, we're building relationships. We're building trust. And so hey, is it true? That's true. And we would have these little laughs and that. And we'd be sitting in there,
say it.
Koorying up, laughing up. And we'd be telling all the stories about when we went away and played football.
It's got to bring you together.
And shaming everyone, you know. And all that laughter and all that fun actually brought us closer together.
Well, you get rid of the crap.
Yeah.
Become honest people.
And we started this ideology. Like, I can just remember, man, like every time we would walk into a hotel, people knew WAC was there. It was like we were an NRL team. And all of the hotels we would fuss to the hotel people. Like, as a team, we wanted to break the stereotypes of blackfellas and would fuss for them and clean up and do everything for them. And they loved us, and we loved our brand and our ideology and about who we were. Before the games, we sat there and we would go through these deep, meaningful conversations about what it was going to take, and that today on this grand final, everybody saw and nobody wants to take that hard hit up, but who's going to be the person who stands up when it's too hard and take that hit up? Who's going to be the person who's going to make that tackle? Who's going to be the person? And we would tell stories about the years before, and we created this atmosphere and this ideology around the success of the team that we had.
It was built on the history and what you learnt, you know, why you were there and the people you're playing for. Like Dino had it with his team. Yeah. When I ran knockout sides, I went off when Dad was running Walgett, and so you just, you know, you went back to what worked. And what brings you together? Food, conversation, laughter.
What's number one, but what gets blackfellas in teams? What's number one? Clothes, brah. Are you serious?
We don't know what to say.
There were some other answers I was going to give you.
I was thinking of food. I was thinking of curry.
If you got a game in Jersey,
bro, no one's coming. The teams too.
If you got a game in Jersey and you don't have the kit, Walgett always had the kit. I'm telling you.
Matt made sure when he started doing WAC on his own, BAC, Walgett, whatever, when he had the sort of ownership of it, he had the lot.
It's been years since I've played, but I still have all the gear, and my kids still have gear, and it just means a lot. And you know what? This is no lie. When I used to work in custody, the boys would be up on the roof throwing tiles, bunging it on, and I'd say, "Well, get down, bro. What are you doing up there, cuz?" "Nah, if this stuff, that, watch out of the way. I don't want to hit you with that." I said, "Bros, if you come down, I'll give you one of my WAC jerseys, bro. I'll put it in your property. Give me 5 minutes, I'll come down," and I'd jump off the roof. I swear to God. I used to use it as a commodity. Our mob, we react to it, and when it's got a brand and people
trust there.
Trust 100%, and that's what it's about. And there's a
trust.
Everything that we do, it's about relationships and family and community, and
reliability.
Well, and what you're talking about there, Brian, that's this Bathurst knockout coming this year. It's what we want these teams to do: to step up their professionalism, look after your players better, look after your community, come together, share the yarns and the experience, and have a real positive experience at the knockout. Mm-hmm. And you can see the teams that do that well. They're the teams that are making it to the Mondays in the knockout. You know what I mean? Like the ones that don't just use and abuse their players or argue with their players or treat their players like crap. Them teams are struggling now. You can see it.
Yeah. You can't have players dictating to you. You got to have the fellas who want to play for you.
If you turn up for Wallang, it's game over. And I've seen stacked teams. They promise all the money, everything, and that's not what wins knockouts. But I'll tell you another yarn, Dino. When I used to work with juvenile justice, I used to ask WAC to come in all the time, and I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, when I finish training, I'll come in and I'll hang it out, and I'll do these days and stuff with the boys." But when we started to do day release for our young people, and would go to the knockouts, I'd say to WAC, "I've got a couple of young boys that are in custody at the moment. They would love to come. I'm going to get them day release. I'm going to supervise them. Can you help me out with accommodation and food and everything?" And I'd be like, "Yep, 100%. And it's about that understanding that it's not all about football. It's about community and fostering relationship. And I see the boys that I used to take, used to pull them out of custody for the whole weekend. They used to come, and they'd be like, "Oh, Peach, and I'm meant to be constant supervision with them. I'm like, "Oh, go and hang out with them lads. Come back here, just do the right thing, you know." And just that trust, that you're trusting them. They're scared to let you down. They're not going to, and that's what it's about. It's about building, strength in community and developing relationships and helping young people grow. And I know for a fact that those boys that come along to those knockouts that they were invited to will never forget about that.
That's what the knockout can do to our people.
Yeah,
bring them together.
That's right.
Give them memories. Give them the, what do you call it, the incentive to stay out.
Yep.
Do the right thing.
It's that warrior mentality. We stick together. When a young fella can't find his way, we're going to pull him next to us and go, "Hey, show Bala."
Mentor him.
It's our rite of passage. It's our you know.
Were any of those guys footballers that end up getting out and having a game, or?
We had a lot of footballers inside. A couple of the boys come straight out and signed top 25 contracts. But they weren't. These boys, they weren't footballers. They just come from community.
That's mad.
But they just wanted to be
That's
there.
mad.
Yeah. You just remember me bringing the boys in there?
Yeah.
They used to love it. But they would get decked out too. They just didn't come. They got all the
They probably got all
clothes.
my gear that I didn't get. I was on the outer by then, see? So I was still trying to crap a number 26, but I was on the other side of the field watching.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I keep coming back to it. It's bigger than just rugby league. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. So, yeah.
Brother, have you heard about the brothers team that used to play in the knockout?
I was just about to talk about the same thing.
Yeah,
I got a yarn
they used to
for
have a
them too.
team called the Brothers, and what they were all prisoners.
Yep.
That would come out and play in the knockout, and as long as they stayed in, they could stay. You know, so everyone would go for them because they wanted the boys to enjoy
Stay
the
out
whole
as long as
weekend, stay out as long as
Well,
they
it
could.
was another unknown. We knew there was football talent there somehow.
And you, in the job you work in, like how much rugby league means to these fellas, a great concept, isn't it? To get the boys out because they, in the lead up, they train in the jails and get themselves fit for what was coming in October.
Let me tell you how it starts, Dino. Our young people find themselves in custody when they lose belonging, when they can't see a future, when they can't see purpose. And it's a really scary place to be. When you feel like there's nothing that you can do that can project yourself forward, that there's no opportunity. And some of our young people from community, the upbringing that I had, you come from such extreme poverty that there's no food, no purpose. It's so easy to lose yourself. And so when you try, and there's no opportunity, then the rules don't apply to you no more. So when you see a young person stealing a car, when you see young people doing things that are wrong and they know that it's wrong, it's because they've lost purpose, that they can't see a future for themselves because the rules don't apply to them anymore. And so rugby league's always been a vessel for that. You know, it was certainly a vessel for me. I wasn't allowed to play football because I had juvenile epilepsy. I didn't start playing until I was 13, which meant Rod couldn't start playing until he was 15 because I wasn't allowed to play. He wasn't allowed to play. And people say, oh, black fellas are good at sports. We're not good at sports. It's where we receive affirmation. It's where we receive praise. I never got praise at school. I didn't learn to read and write until I was 25, 26 years old. And so when I first started playing rugby league, I put a couple of hits on, made some tries. People patted me on the back and said, well done. And I was like, what's that feeling? What's that feeling? Someone's giving me praise. I like this feeling. And then I went after it. I chased it. And then the more I did it, and see, I can't mimic reading and writing. I can't do that. But I can mimic football player. So when I watched Dino, my favourite football player on TV, his little step and his jink and his what's the name, I can practice that while I'm walking around school and I'm hitting the poles. And we can all picture this because we all did it.
Yeah.
And we're working on our skills and we're developing those skills, those chips and chase. And the better we become at it, the more praise we get. The more praise, the more enthusiasm. That's belonging. That means that we have purpose and that we have a goal and we're moving towards it. And then all of a sudden, my community, there were lots of things going on. I never got caught up in it because I was focused. Rugby league was my thing. When everyone was drinking on Friday night, I was preparing for a game. When everyone else was drinking, you know, and doing different things, I was preparing for a game. And I was going away for rep teams and I was doing this and I was preoccupied in my purpose. And so when our young people are lost and they can't find their feet it's because they don't have their purpose. That's been stolen from them and they don't believe, whether it's true or not, that there's a future for them. And so that's the important thing about rugby league. I was getting my praise. I said, oh, I like this feeling. The tap on my back is
There's
such
purpose.
a good thing. And it created this purpose for me. And that's how I become, that's how I got out of the community that I come from.
You were driven from that.
Right, you articulate that so well, but this concept of the brothers, I feel like you'd be the perfect man to bring them back.
Yeah,
like
100%.
to talk about you're in the role, you got the connections, to bring them boys back and give them that purpose and give them something to aspire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I go and I do work in a couple of the centres too, Dean. And there's popular belief that our mob are bad people that are in custody. That's so not true. When I go in there, they're just brothers, just like everyone else, just lost their way a little bit. And you know, having some sort of incentive or some goal to work towards certainly won't hurt. And I reckon it's something definitely that we should explore. But do you want to be playing against them fellas, my bro?
I don't play anymore, so don't worry me. I'd love to watch them. Dude, I'd love to watch them. And I'm the same as you, bro. When you go in there, the boys, they're so warm. They just need someone to be good to them and give them something to believe in. I'd love to see you bring it back.
The concept of it too, right, is the guys that are in there that are on the right track and want to be a part of something and want to get back into sport, want to get back into doing something positive for when they get out. So I reckon the people that are involved in it, they are people that you do want to see do well, and even if you come up against them, you give them every opportunity to play a good game of footy against you. But I reckon you would be the perfect person to get involved with. Is it something that's actually possible still at the moment, or is it
absolutely.
the structure of everything?
No, not
back
at
at
all.
Bathurst.
It doesn't have to be the big knockout. It can be any knockout.
Bathurst could have their own team up there.
Yeah. So
Want
just
me to coach them?
You go up on the hill.
if they're available for day release, if their risk level's low, they can come out for days. When I was at Campbelltown, I had a couple of the boys who used to play in the Campbelltown comp, used to come out every week. One of the boys come out, he was playing, he'd been in custody for 6 years and signed a top 25 NRL contract straight out of custody. So
I coached at Redfern and we had a few of the boys come out and we won the comp with them. Yeah, and it just opens this brothers conversation back up. I'd love to see it get back out there.
I remember them up at Nambucca when they played Koori. I think it was the game 6-2, I think the game was, or 6-0. No knockout teams like that, but Koori, one of the best knockout teams you'd come across at knockout and playing against the brothers who been there might have been their first year back in, or not back in, but in, and come up with a scoreline like that. So it just shows the talent that's in there football-wise.
Get them back in.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't get those sort of scores. So yeah, they're good footballers in there, and they need that purpose to come out and
on the front foot,
Yeah.
we need academies. We need academies for our young people, and especially young people from disadvantaged from disadvantaged households where mum and dad are life's really complicated for them. This kid's got a good attitude, but they just feel a little bit bogged down. How do we give them the support and the confidence to move out of that space, to go and explore, but giving them the structure where they're safe. When I come down from far north Queensland, a lot of people think that Rod and I come from privileged family. We don't. We don't come from privileged lives. And when we come down, everything was so foreign to me. I couldn't navigate anything, and I made so many bad mistakes because I was just too juvenile, because my mindset was still community mindset, and I caused so much grief to myself and to people around me, and I did that for a long time. But with knowledge comes power, and sooner or later I found out that I wasn't the bad person who I thought I was, because when you think like that, you keep projecting the badness. You've been labelled and you've been told that you're this type of person. Once I found myself, I started to learn to read, to write. I started working in custody. I started to, I did a Cert 4 in community service. I started to find out why I was like I was and why I was doing what I was doing. I realised I wasn't a bad person. And then I sort of forgave myself and found my way around and navigating. So I know what that journey looks like. It's not that foreign to me. I'm just trying to find ways for our young people in the city.
you can see that in other people, can't you?
Yeah, I see this young person and I'm like, that's me. And this kid can be whoever he wants to be.
Whether he's
How
a
do we do
footballer
that?
or whatever.
Yeah. I was just talking to Georgie before. He said, the boxing's on. You want to come? I said, I got some couple of boys that are in community at the moment. They're deadly fellas. Can I bring them along? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yep, I'm going to drag them along, because you can't be what you can't see. I want them to hang around deadly black fellas. And I want them to dream big. I want them to understand that you can that we come from similar backgrounds and you can be exactly like us.
A little bit.
Well, I'm going to hit you with a hard one now.
Go.
There are 3 players that you wouldn't go to the knockout without. You're going to win it. Who's the 3 you're taking with you? And you played with some great players in some great teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's so many different structures. Let's look at it like this. If I was going to go...
There's no judgment here.
Yeah.
You just have a crack at it.
If I was going to go with a crew, and teams have their crews, obviously the Rose brothers are part of that, and then the Briggs brothers, knockout
royalty.
You got, and it probably feels like I'm pissing in everyone's pockets, but all of the key stakeholders are here. Dean and his crew, you want to go where there's those groups of people that hold that fabric together, and you know who they are as soon as you start talking about them. Any of the big naming teams, AJ and NAB and the Yowie boys, you start to see these.
They're all driven
with
crew,
Wacky,
you know.
Yeah.
They're all driven. All those people you mentioned,
That's
they're
number
all
one.
driven.
You need to go to a team that's driven, that has structure, that has discipline, that has the ingredients. That's number one. Number two, if you're looking for a big game player, like I said, your Wes
Patton.
Patton. But the other week, last year in the finals, I saw 2 boys that were playing football that I thought, wow, these guys really have the S factor, and that was Woodridge. Man,
Oh, yeah.
man, that try that he scored
Yeah.
was just out of control, and just how quick he was and elusive. I was like, wow, this lad's on another level. But Sigwell, just for a young boy to put himself in a game, like he was one of the leaders on the day. He was like, and that's really strange for such a young person to take on a vital role. So in the future, if I'm going to a team, I'm looking for young lads like that. But man, I always loved Georgie Kepper. And again, I'm talking from a more intimate space, guys that I play with. Georgie Kepper, he would just always return the ball. And when Georgie's head was down and he wasn't going well, we had to start to question things.
Yeah.
Like his body language was telling us how everything was going. But big name players, Dean, there's so many you couldn't even possibly. It'd be a misjustice. Like there's so many guys that I could just roll out one after the other, where they're just key players, key people. Jolie Thompson, I always like playing with Joel because he just works and he always talks and he's in the back of your mind, always positive, no negativity.
Yeah.
When I Nathan Merritt was just pulling pieces to everyone to pieces when we were playing at the Memorial.
Wasn't
He
he?
just scored tries, man. Then I played at Minda River, and those boys were just such a good group of guys. Sometimes they were so unlucky not to win more knockouts, and they were just a team of really tough. There was really, like, when you look at them, how many really good players did they have in their team? They were just a group of country boys that banded together and tried really hard. They hated me. That year we won the knockout, we knocked it because we beat them twice.
Yeah, I know.
I reckon it was a little bit of the ingredients that you just can't put in a team, like these fellas playing for their people, having their uncles and dads in there behind them.
There's so much love in that. Like,
you can't.
If there's any reason to play football, that's the reason why.
Well, that's where I see where Minda had there was a dream team. It was an unreal team.
Yep.
These fellas that knockout, I remember all those games. Like, don't get me wrong, I was there, I was watching. I didn't play in any of it, and
A little bit of history.
They don't have to dig deep.
The thing they like.
They can when they dig deep, they beat gun sides. They don't have to dig deep to beat teams in football.
Yeah.
When it comes to the knockout, you could put anyone in front of. If they played against the Wes Patton Memorial team, they would have beat them. Like these fellas.
I'm glad you said that. brother.
I'm saying because I do believe that now, and there's not many teams like them in the knockout.
You'd see everybody lift around these fellas though too, eh? Like a player might be at this standard, this level, but because they're playing alongside him and playing for him, they lift to this level, and that's that little difference between
and it's no
losing by
disrespect
10
to my
and winning
brothers
by
here,
10.
Trenny and Matt. We didn't get to see a lot of our fathers. We got to see George play in front of us, but those blokes who played in front of us, they weren't there behind us when we come for our knockouts. We just didn't have that little. We had the history there. But we just didn't have those couple of old fellas, or you probably had about 10 blokes in the shed.
Oh, bro, they ride it like my old man, and
It's a different community.
the brothers he played with, they would be there, and you could feel their energy and their motivation, their inspiration, and it was magic. It would lift you. And I played with so many Narwhal teams and players at Narwhal that were probably a 5 or 6 out of 10 player during the season, sometimes even worse than that. But they'd lift to an 8 or 9 out of 10 for the knockout, and just do unbelievable things once they come to that knockout. I couldn't explain it.
Well,
It's the history of the jersey.
It is.
Lifts you.
It's a different
I
level.
had something else there.
I was going to say Trenny Rose too, because when we played, Trenny was just that little angry
Agitator.
He was the agitator, but it's that leadership and that willingness to get up and to take those hit ups, and it's not just rugby league. Like we talked about our Narwhal, like they scared us out of our Minda River out of that year. But Trenny would have this sixth sense when he felt like things were getting out of control or we weren't having a grip on the game, that he would start to agitate. And there's more than one way to win a game in knockout, and it's not just playing football, it's smart. So it's the muscle sometimes coming up and scaring a young team, or sometimes it's agitating lads and getting them off their game and out of their plan. And so there's more to it.
A lot of elements to training.
Knockout.
So you can kick 40-20s and knockouts and kick goals. And
he
hit
did that
blokes.
in that 09 grand final.
Yeah,
That was a good
Trenny
40-20.
knows how much I love him when he played knockout.
You know,
You know, he makes me weak from the heart. I just loved it when he played.
yeah, there he is, the big fella.
He knows it.
The other one that I want to talk about, because it was like we had a battle with Minderibba up at where was it?
Armadale.
It was a battle, and it was a big knockout, and we were
played with them the
tired.
year before.
And they were tired.
Yeah.
And when Chrissy Sandown put that ball on the tee directly in front of the post, I thought it was game over, and I said to her, like, I was upset, like I was going into brain fog style, PJ, and I said to Matty, I said, if he kicks this, Buzz, I'm going to go and king someone.
But he don't miss away from
I
that.
think we all was on the highway ready to go home.
Yeah.
He kicked it and it hit the post and bounced out, and it was game on. Another big player that meant a lot to us was the score trier in that game. You know who I'm talking about?
Try scorer, Sean Daylight.
Daylight. Like, man, like he
You
would just
watch that try back.
Yeah.
He should never have scored.
no.
He got tackled. There was 32 people tried to tackle him. There was only 13 people on the field.
Touchdown tried to bring him down.
Touchdown
too.
tried to tackle him, and he still got over the line.
Last day, the last game of the knockout, the last play it ended up being. It's amazing. It reminds you of Brent Todd's, Steve Jackson's try for Raiders when he kept bumping out of players and scoring. It was
Bro,
like
it's
that, wasn't it?
unbelievable. He should never have scored it. And didn't you put the shot on leading up to it?
Yeah, I
So
knocked the
Minder
ball
had
loose.
the ball.
Yeah.
He put the shot on, knocked the ball loose. We picked it up. I think we took one run, passed,
Trent over
And
here
then-
chucking dummies.
and then Daylight. Did Daylight go from dummy half?
It was unlikely,
and
bloke.
even when you watch it, you think like nothing's
just taking
happening
the saddle,
here.
yeah.
He's just running it in, and then he bumped one, and he ended up. Yeah, I said 32, but it might have been 34 people he bumped off.
Spinning
Two touch
out.
judges as well.
And the
Love it.
dead ball touchdown.
That was Matty's best year in the knockout too.
He was amazing,
He carved
yeah.
up. Yeah, he carved up that year.
The game before, when he was a down and out, Matty goes chips and chase and getting George to come back inside.
If you go back and look at that, if you have a look at the videos from that, like he was
got the video there.
instrumental. Roddy,
you want the video? I got it.
Yeah, Roddy and Letty on that right hand edge would just terrorised everyone as well. They just couldn't deal with them.
Yeah.
When they come in on Rod,
Too
he'll let
classy.
it go, and
Too
when
classy.
they didn't
Yeah,
come
so
in,
I
he'd
don't
beat them.
think Rod got enough credit for his knockout that year
I
either.
think-
The setup and what he did, he was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Roddy played a lot of second receive, 2-5-8 type of play, and the more he touched it,
Yeah.
the better the game was going. With, you know.
Roddy for us is just vital in that clean up at the back. Like
He was fit.
It's that extra work that you do that you don't get credit for. So when it's a small line break, but you cut them down early because you're there, it's that extra little work that you do behind, and that's the different layers. You have your big game players, you have your workers. You have your agitators. There's so many different ingredients to a
You
full
get your towies
team.
that go all game.
Towie, well, look, if you want to talk about a workhorse, there's just nobody in the history of the knockout who did as much work as
When you
this
look at
lad.
his body language, you think
Towie
he can't do
Leha.
another hit up, can he?
Yeah. Sorry, go again?
When you look at his body language, you can't do another hit up, can you?
Wow.
And he just kept going.
Well, not many people outworked me, I don't reckon. And he was someone who did. Like, he would just be, I'd be like, he's just taking another one. I've got to take another one. he was really important and was really tight with our team. So
He played for the team.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things, and we're talking about it at the moment, one of the things that gets overlooked too much in the ingredients to win a knockout is fitness. And a lot of teams, that'll whinge about whatever happened in a game. They know themselves they didn't turn up fit enough for that. You and Roddy have always been one of the most impeccable specimens that show up at the knockout. For a front rowers don't usually look like you at the knockout. Big, muscly, fit. What is it that drove you to be as fit as you were constantly for your whole career?
It's competitiveness. It has to be. There's nothing else. Like for me, if I felt like I was undercooked, I didn't want to be there. As soon as I couldn't compete to my full potential, I gave football up. 28. Like
You're honest with that.
I wanted to compete, and I didn't want anyone to think that they had it over me. And when I done my ACL in 2007, I did that in a game at Walgett in the knockout. I played a couple of years without an ACL. That slowed me down, so I couldn't get in the wrestle. And then people were throwing me on the ground, and I hated like my ego and my
That wasn't you.
bullfettedness. Didn't like that they could do that to me, and so that started to upset me. And soon it become so many small injuries that I couldn't do what I wanted to do anymore. And if I can't win, I don't want to play. Were you like that, Dean?
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't go there unless.
What was your mentality when you were playing football? Like, talk me through that. Like, because we all have these different mentalities, but like, I just always remember you always being in the game, always competing. When I only played a couple of times against you, but whenever I got the ball, I'd take 2 steps and you'd be on me. Like, I never had time. Like, you'd take that time away from me, and that edge and that competitiveness is part of who you are. So talk us through
my
that.
knockout thing is all about my childhood. Like I just remember every year being a kid, watching my dad play for Narwhal and lead the Narwhal team and bust himself and trying to win. And I just remember sitting there all the time, just watching and going, I can't wait to play. And I want this crowd. I'd sit there amongst our crowd and our families and see how desperate they were for our team to win and how much it meant to them to win. I'm like, I want this crowd I want to be the one that makes them happy one day. I want to be the one that gives them something to be proud about, that helps them stick their chest out. And when I got that chance to play in the knockout, that used to be the thing that would drive me. I used to just think that I was a kid standing on that sideline wanting someone to step up and do something here right now and wanting someone to lead, and I just wanted it, you know what I mean? Like,
What about Dean outside of football? Like, what's your mentality about, like, work
we're
ethic?
interviewing you here, you know? We're not interviewing me.
I know it's an interview on me, but just trying to work out what makes
You
people
admire
tick.
this guy, don't you?
What makes them? I do absolutely.
And I seen the same thing in George from a young age. It's just we're that proud of our communities, and we want to represent our communities because we just want to make a difference. We want young people up there to not grow up with the doubts I had, the challenges I had, the barriers I had to face as young kids. I want our kids to be free of the stuff that held us back and the stuff that held our fathers and our uncles back and the sad, miserable stories I grew up hearing. So that's been my driver, you know what I mean? And I think we got to get better as a community of praising our people that are doing well and lifting them up. Because if we lift people up and we praise them and push them further up, they're going to drag us all up. What we've been good at for too long in our communities is holding each other back, running each other down, and then that just keeps us all down in the gutter. And we've got to get out of there.
When you're intimate in community and growing up, you know how hurtful some of those little words could be. But then you also know how small a little encouragement can bring people up. And I guess, I never made NRL. I never made a big career out of football. I loved football. Most kids who I talk to would know nothing about football. And even my son, he's just so blasé about it. He's like, Uncle Rod. He's got these cards that are signed by Uncle Rod. And my son, he doesn't really care. And most people don't know about my football career. But what I do have is my experience growing up in community and my ability to engage with young people. The story that I have is similar to their story. And that's what it's about. It's just about empowering them, giving them the hope. Sometimes it's just that one little word of encouragement. You don't even realise the impact that has on that young person at that time or in that place. Or just grabbing that kid and going, here, bruh, come and check this out. Have a look at this. And it just opens. We have all of these hurdles we don't even know that are there. We don't even know that they exist, but they're barriers from us moving on into the bigger thing. And I think that's why I keep coming back to the social aspect. Rugby league is really important, but it's bigger than that. It's about empowering our young people, creating opportunity for them to go out, looking at their role models and inspiring to be that. And that's why our behaviour at the knockouts needs to be better. I don't want to see the fights anymore, and I was part of them, so I can't criticise anyone because I used to be that, but we're outgrowing that now.
Pete, you're one of the great motivational people in rugby league, in knockout footy. I know you're not in coaching at the moment, but I could easily see you transitioning to be one of the great coaches because I know a lot of your energy at the moment is focused in community and building up our youth. But I have no doubt that one day you'll be a great coach if you ever decided to step over and become that. I just want to touch back on more of the knockout stuff again. You've been in so many great games, so many great teams. What are some of your most memorable games and some of the great players that you feel that you've played against? Some of the great forwards that you've played against?
Well, again, in 2004, my first knockout, there was this young kid I was just monstering everyone at the knockout. And I thought he was an adult. Like I thought when I was watching him from the sideline, I was thinking, this is an old man running around. He's so dominant. And he had this big bushy hair that was flying everywhere, and he was just running and manhandling everyone. But Laurie, what's his name?
Dane, Big Dane.
Yeah,
Zig.
Big Dane,
Big
man.
Ziggy.
And again,
He's one of my favourite players.
man, like, the potential for this lad, he could have been anything, you know. And sometimes I wish that for him so much. I remember, man, I used to come into Redfern and sit down around the fire bucket down there, and he'd be drinking down there and we'd be having a yarn back when I first come to Sydney and that. And I just wanted it so much for him, and he had so much potential to be that. But he was definitely someone who I looked at and went, holy dooly, like this lad's an absolute gun. I played with Alan Ritchie when we were out.
Richie Allen.
Richie Allen, sorry, yeah. Richie Allen. Man, he just put us around the field, his kicks, the way that he put himself into the game.
Control the game good, eh?
Yeah. And he's a little chubby fella too, so you don't expect it from him. And he's just putting lads
Made
through
him
holes.
harder to tackle, eh?
He was one of the best half
Great
5'8" at knockout.
Yeah.
Great
In
player,
that
Richie.
Man, there's just, again, like there's so many. One of the knockouts too, the second one we won against Minderibba, Marmon Barber, you know, he was quiet the whole knockout, but in the grand final he come alive, and he literally just won it by himself. How many tries did he score? 2 or 3?
No, we were all tied, could barely touch our toes in that, and he's doing runaway tries and backflips.
Backflips, yeah. And
On
so-
the Monday Arvo.
Again, going back to what I said before, there's these big game players, people that come out. They're not the ones that compete non-stop during the game. They're not the ones who do all the hard work, but they take the big plays.
Yeah.
And they get to stand up and everybody idolises them. And then you have your hard workers. They're the lads that are just in the background doing all the little tackles, being the third person in, slowing it down.
Training.
But you need both, don't you? You need
Well,
both.
you need that, but then you need your big agitators and the people who stir everyone up and turn the game upside down. And you need there's so many different.
You need a
dynamics
few flavours,
that
don't you?
Bring it flavors, but yeah, when it comes down
Like Neapolitan.
to my all-time favorite knockout player, like Wesley's just
Wes and Dennis for me.
Wesley Patton is just on a league of
George.
his own, and because I was young and so influential, and I was just watching him like how he was doing what he was doing. After those years, he wasn't as dominant as what he was, but those 3 years at the Memorial side, Wesley was just putting us everywhere, and I was making full field try. I remember
Remember they put him out in the centres?
He chased
He's
Chock
killed
down.
them.
Remember the moment he chased Chock when Chock made the break for Waterloo?
Yep.
And Wes was the one who was going after him, and Wes was not going to let Chock get away from him. I've never seen Wes chase someone
He's
so
quick,
hard.
eh?
But he was in the centres that day, and. But yeah, when Chock made that break, there was no way Wes was going to let Chock get past him and score.
in the final on the kickoff, they kicked all the way down. I got the ball. I ran the length of the field. I went straight through the line. Lyons was in front of me, and I don't know how I did it, but I stepped in.
You didn't have his
You must have had your ACL then.
I don't know what happened. Maybe I tripped. I don't know what happened, but I got past him.
Might have just given away on him and he just fell.
And I was
right.
gone. And I wasn't known for my speed. And Wesley was right on my hip, and I sort of double pumped it, and I just took the ball and took to play the ball. And I ran 2/3 of the field. He's just saying to me, pass me the effing ball. Like when I call it, you give me the ball. He's into me.
He's having a
I'm
full
like-
conversation
I'm
with
like,
you.
"Oh, okay.
But that's that ultimate competitor, eh? And that's what you need.
Yeah.
He just wanted to chalk that try up though.
Man, if I'm running onto the ball and I don't get the ball, I'm pissed off. Back in the day, even one of the dads, I'd become a firefighter, and then one of the dads come up, he goes, "Oh, you don't know me, but my son such and such." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "My first memory of you was just spraying my son because he didn't give you
Dry
the ball."
run.
I said, "Brother, when I want the ball, I want the ball." Like when you're one of those players that want to put lots of energy in, and you see a space or you see something on, and someone dummies it and takes a tackle. You get upset, don't
I think
you?
I've seen
Like, if
him
you're
dry run a few times. Yeah, it wasn't good.
So what do our young front rowers need now? So I feel like we're in a little bit of a drought of front rowers coming through to the NRL. In our pathways, there's some big kids in there in the pathway systems at the moment. What do they need to do to be able to compete at the best level?
I'm talking.
And that's knockout level and everything.
Yeah, I'm talking to my son about it at the moment. You know, like I didn't have any coaching when I was growing up, and the hard knocks that I learned taught me to be resilient and tough and to chase it. But we're getting to a space now where some of our mob are a little bit more privileged. You know, they're living up, going to good schools, always got a feed on the table. Don't have to worry about the electricity being turned off. You know, they're all getting, like, life's just handed to them on a platter compared to how we were reared up. And I say to my son all the time, he's like, Dad, I want to be a football player. And I say, okay, what are you going to do about it? And I write him up these schedules and to train. And, you know, he'll go down every third day. And I said, and I drew this big calendar up on the thing. I said, Marley, if you want to be a football player and this is what your dream is going to be, this is the commitment that you need to have. I said, how much out of these 365 days do you think that you need to train if you want to be that person? He said, I don't know. I said, what, 50%? He said, yeah, 50%. I said, no, it's more than that. I said, how much? He said, 70%. I said, no, it's more than that, Marley. And I said, you have to be there 95% of the time. Every single one of these training days need to be ticked. And out of the end of the 365 days, if you have 10 days where you haven't turned up and you haven't trained, you're probably going to be successful. But there's 1,000 kids in this area that all want to be and chase that dream. And what's going to set you aside? The answer to that, George, is just manning up, following your dream, not making excuses. People say, oh, why didn't you make it, PJ? And I know why I didn't make it. My attitude was bad. I had a bad attitude, not around football, but around the world around football. So I burned bridges where I went. When we finished football training, we'd be driving home and Roddy would ring me and he goes, oh, I've got pasta and tuna at home. And I'm like, oh, I'm not eating that. I'm going to pull in at KFC, you know, and I'd go to KFC and 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning, Roddy would be knocking on my door. Come on, I'm going to the gym. We're doing some extras today. Nah, man, I'm too tired. And so when I look at this board, the board that I had was 75% full. I didn't deserve to make it.
Wasn't enough.
I took the cheap options. And so making yourself accountable. If you want to be that, then you can be whatever you want to be. Stop eating, get in the gym, run more. You know what your deficits are. Work on them, build on them, be stronger than that. And all it is self-accountability. Don't blame anyone else. My son come back the other week and he didn't make the rep side, and he was probably better than the other centre, but he didn't put himself in the game. And I said, and he was like, oh, I'm better. And I said, Marley, shut up. I want to hear your excuses, mate. I said, you need to go into beast mode when you're not getting the ball. You need to go in, you need to make tackles, you need to get your hand on the ball, you need to find ways to make yourself, put yourself in the game. Don't blame anyone else. That's your fault. And we're having these hard conversations. My wife said sometimes, oh, you're a little bit hard on him. And I said, I'm not hard on him. It's the reality. You know, when I got to Canberra and I got my tracksuit, I thought I made it. That's all I needed. No one was there telling me. You know, my brother was trying to tell me, but he couldn't tell me. Mum and Dad didn't have the knowledge on how to support me, on how to do it. And you know, you miss out because my attitude wasn't right. So it's just about being honest to yourself, George. And there's so many of us who are not good at being honest to ourselves. We can find excuses to not to succeed, but all they are is excuses.
That's some hard truth there.
Beautifully said. I don't know if there's any more to add to something like that.
I just think if you're a front row or any professional or want to be professional sports person, you get out there and you take advice from PJ, because there you go. There's living proof there. You can make it. His brother played a lot of NRL. PJ was unreal in every other football game. Don't miss out.
Look, I appreciate you coming on. Was there anything else that you can share with us while we're here? Because we've, man...
blown us away.
You've blown us away, absolutely, haven't you, on here? I mean, there's so much knockout experience, so much life experience that you've been able to share with everyone, and we really do appreciate it.
No, I'm just grateful to be here at No Limit Boxing in this big flashing, seeing the brothers succeed. Like, I've been watching the journey of No Limit and the brand and how everything's growing, and it's a proud moment for all our mob. I keep telling everyone, you know, No Limit, they're black fellas and they're this and that, and everyone knows who you are. But it's good to see success, and like Dino said, we need to, as a community, get behind the success and grow the success, but not even more than that, but jump onto it and to support it and to grow with it also. The sky's the limit for mob at the moment if you put yourself in the right position. But then also, when you have the success, share your success. Be generous with your
That's what we're doing.
success.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really proud of what you guys have done. When you guys invited me, I was super excited to come because I've been watching your podcast. So I was super excited. But this is like the second best thing I've ever done.
Nice.
We're proud to be
That's cool.
with you, bro.
What's the first? You want me to say, oh, what's the first best?
Oh, okay. What's the first?
Yeah. Play school, bro. Round window. I was on play school. It was a big thing for me.
Well, good and all right. It was a start from the start. Oh, geez.
Beautiful. Play school.
Hey, well, no, thank you again. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Looking forward to actually before we wrap up. What's the chances of you chucking the boots on?
0.
Nothing.
43, that's young.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We're hosting it this year in Bathurst.
Yeah.
It's cold enough for injuries.
Yeah,
You
look, I
recover good.
there is absolutely no chance whatsoever of me playing football. My body is completely done. Seriously.
Nah, honestly, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Look, everyone, thanks for tuning in again. Make sure you follow us, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You can watch the whole thing back again, get to look at us all, these beautiful faces all over again, or you can tune in Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining us, and we'll bring you plenty more knockout yarns in the coming weeks. Don't forget, if you've got anything that you want us to yarn about, reach out. We talk about anything here.